Hello, everybody. We are in for another treat this evening. Dr. Sabrina Kay is going to come up on stage in a second. I'd like to just give you a quick public bio, and then I'll give you a little private bio as well, so you can get a little bit more of a deep insight to this very, very special speaker. So Dr. Sabrina Kay, serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, who started no less than 7 diverse ventures, including the Art Institute of Hollywood, which was sold to EDMC and then to Goldman Sachs, Premier Business Bank, Fashion Umbrella, Freeman Private Investments, and her most passionate and current project is as Chancellor of Freeman College. As a philanthropist, she founded the Sabrina Kay Charitable Foundation. She's chaired After School, if anybody knows the All Stars, a phenomenal organization, since 2004, and served on over 30 different charitable and civic boards. She's been recognized with numerous notable awards, including Woman of the Year by the California Legislature, finalist for Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. I'm starting to feel really, really inadequate right now. And was introduced to the Hall of Fame by California Association of Post-Secondary Schools. Now, she not only is an awesome entrepreneur, not only is charitable and helps the community, but she's kind of smart as well. She earned her joint doctorate degree in work-based learning leadership at the Wharton School of Graduate School of Education at the University of Pennsylvania. She holds not single, but double master's degrees, an MBA from USC, a master's of, oh, listen, enough, too much, right? Now I'm going to tell you why I think that she's so incredibly awesome. For me, this is my 3rd State of the City as co-chair, which I do, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of. I feel always when we have this evening, it's kind of a fusion of how residential in Santa Monica fuses really beautifully with business in Santa Monica to take us to this amazing harmony and gives us the American dream every day. Now, Sabrina, for me, is the embodiment of that American dream. She started not from a place where it was easy to become a billionaire in a business, but really humble beginnings, an immigrant, and turned into a multi-billionaire. Yes, that's a B. And in my opinion, the most successful entrepreneur that's been produced in my lifetime in Santa Monica. So, at this moment, enough from me. I'm proud to bring on stage my friend and icon of entrepreneurship here in Santa Monica, Ms. Sabrina Kay.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that overly generous, I guess, compliment. My mom told me that I have to lower everyone's expectations so that I can be successful, and he totally killed it for me. I saw him this morning, and I thought it was illegal to wear ties in Santa Monica, and I saw him in a red tie, so I went home and changed for you guys. So thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I'm brand new in Santa Monica, and this is one of the many, many photos on my iPhone. I think my true immigration really happened coming in Santa Monica. Like Brian said, I came from South Korea as a poor immigrant, and we didn't have any money. Started as a janitor, scrubbing floors and toilets in offices at night. And our family went around in the yard sale and bought a lot of junk from different yard sale, and then we sold it on streets in swap meet. But because of this amazing country and the opportunities that has given to anybody so generously, both of my brothers became medical doctors, and I was able to start a company as a single mom and a college dropout, and was able to retire. So I went back to school to be a teacher. But when my immigration, I say that my American immigration came to the second country that I immigrated, which is Santa Monica. This is a completely different country by itself. It just has different council, different culture, different communities, and it's just astonishing to see how the city has changed for the last 10 years of hotels, shops, and it's just not a beach town. It is a mecca of where the innovation happens. And we're so lucky to be part of this. So I guess today's summit, the question that we have is, where do we go from here? The way we ask is, we don't answer that question because I was told that if you play with a crystal ball, you're going to drop it and you will be hurt by shattered 1,000 pieces of glasses. So I'm not going to do that. but I want to share the history with you. In the 19th century, when the cars came into our lives, no one decided to use horse carriages anymore. And I don't know anybody who uses horses for transportation today. In 1876, when Alexander Graham Bell made that historical phone call, nobody sends a telegraph, says, "I have to see you right now," right? So what's happening? This is 750 years of England, the economic growth. So if you look at it, for the last 100 years of economic growth is vastly different than the first 650 years. And it's because of what happened in the late 19th century of transportation and communication. That is called exponential growth. Is that going to continue? Where are we in that part of that exponential growth? One of my favorite quotes is, "Days are long, but years are short." I come home sometimes, and I'm sure you have those days too. Today was a long day, but where did 2017 go? What happened? So if you look at the part of that exponential growth of the 90-degree hockey stick and take one day, 1 week, or 1 month, actually the graph becomes a completely different graph. It becomes flatter and rounder. And because of that, future is very hard to predict, and it's very difficult to feel what type of a velocity of the speed that we're involved right now. But one thing I can tell you is our great-grandchildren will look back today, maybe the next 10 years, and say, "That was a time." And I don't know exactly what they're going to say, but some of the possibilities are, I think that they used to carry those paper money to go to shops to buy stuff. Or I think humans used to drive cars in the 21st century. I don't know. That could be a possibility. Deb may be totally disagreeing with me in the back, so we'll talk about it when we sit there. This is a hometown of many, many, many unicorns. This is where all these innovation happened. It's not a beach town. It is a town for thought leaders. Santa Monica, together with Palo Alto and New York, is leading the technological innovation. And we should all be so proud of it. And we should be so lucky to be part of this innovation, part of the history. We're in the middle of the eye of the storm. It doesn't happen every day. We're right here, right at this moment, in Santa Monica. So how lucky are we? So when you look ahead, what is blockchain going to change us? Is escrow companies and title companies going to be okay? Are we going to sign papers when we buy houses? How about retail? When AR comes into our lives, is the retail space going to change vastly differently? How do we watch TV or movies with VR? Are we going to have relationships, or are we going to have a relationship with AI who really understands us? There will be no fighting. But when there will be machine learning, then AI may be a lot more difficult to deal with than your real spouse at home. So, is that going to be friend or foe? What's happening with our lives? Think about it. And this is really, really exciting, but also very scary. When there's fear, we have 4 different responses. Humans have freeze, that's being paralyzed in front of fear, or flee, they run. Bad response is hide, but great response would be fight that fear. And once you have adopted your action plan with your fear, then your fear can actually become a superpower. And that's the possibility that we have here in Santa Monica. If we don't do that, because of the fear of the speed we're at, there will be leveling off. This is called logistic growth that comes after exponential growth. And these are the limitations. Competition, we already have cities around us like Playa del Rey, Venice. All these cities are emulating what we have done in Santa Monica. The space we have, we're talking about housing and traffic, resources, most importantly, human capital pipeline. Are we ready for that speed? And if we don't prepare, that logistic growth will, at best, will be just leveling it off. And then it can go either way. Okay? And that decision is up to us in this room. That decision is our responsibility. When we eliminate that limitation, it's called the carrying capacity. When you get rid of that carrying capacity, then we're ready for the second growth of that exponential growth. So as policymakers, business owners, residents in Santa Monica, it is our responsibility to listen and collaborate together to figure out what these carrying capacity is. How do we get rid of it? How do we prepare Santa Monica for the second phase of exponential growth? That is the question that we have today. So as a community, we'll all pause and ask, what questions would we ask? When I came to Santa Monica as a teacher, one thing that is very evident, although I'm not going to predict the future, I can predict that we need better education. We need to educate and we need to prepare all of us to be ready for the 21st century. Biggest disparity in this amazing country that I see is not socioeconomical disparity, it's disparity of knowledge and education. If you look at the inner city, those inner city kids do not have an opportunity to Ivy League schools. It is heartbreaking. As an immigrant, I feel almost inadequate that I was able to go to an Ivy League school where our own children in this country don't have that opportunity. So how do we make that social justice and social equity to give them the reskilling as well as preparation for the 21st century? A lot of great businesses are not going to be prepared as we are part of that exponential growth. Remember, we're on that 90-degree hockey stick speed. How do we prepare that? So with Fremont College and Dale Carnegie training, what I really am committing to you is I would love to collaborate with any businesses who need proper skilling training, as well as last mile training for your employees. That is so important for all businesses to look ahead of the 21st century. As a city, as Mayor Winterer and City Manager Rick Cole have discussed, it is really the housing, traffic patterns, healthcare, mental and physical. The city has done such an amazing job, but we have a lot more work to do. So how do we all collaborate together as one community? When you look at blue zone studies of so many different countries, the Venn diagram of the middle, of the common denominator, is a community and the knowledge. So today, I'm so looking forward to sitting down with the leaders and discuss and have that communication as a community and see what we need to do to leave this place a little bit better place for our next generation. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Now I'd like to welcome back to the stage Sabrina Kay, Deb Schwimmer, and Rick Cole so that they can answer some of your questions.
Good evening again. So let's give another round of applause to two fabulous contributors. Sabrina, you talked about the limitations of carrying capacity and the need to get beyond them, and particularly touched a number of times in your remarks about human capital. And Debs, you employ a tremendous amount of human capital to make Lyft work. People who, if we go to autonomous vehicles, will not be having those jobs. So let's talk about how, as you challenged us, we prepare this and next generation for the changes that are coming. Obviously, there's higher education, there's K through 12, and here in Santa Monica, trying to make sure that every kindergartner arrives ready to learn, knows their colors, knows their numbers, ready to read. What can we all do to make sure that Santa Monica College is full of students learning the tools and the skills they'll need to succeed?
I would look at all education in 3 different parts: pre-elementary, and then I would look at 1 through 12, and then post-secondary. And then after post-secondary, it would be more of a vocational and skills training. So if you just divide it into those 4, the needs are very, very different. Before post-secondary is more of an investment. Post-secondary is really, there's a fierce sense of urgency of now. We have a skills gaps training. So you kind of look at it in a very different ways. Especially if you look at something like, Uber or Lyft, who house so many different, employees, and we're afraid that autonomous cars are going to kill that employment. I say no. When the typists became computer operators, no one lost a job. The secretaries became executive assistants, and executive assistants became chief of staff. So it's reskilling, and the training is it's more of a marketplace problem. People would know that as long as there's an education to support, people will be able to get into the jobs that's required in the marketplace.
And thoughts about what we can do in our 8.3 square miles to facilitate that?
So you talked about Santa Monica College. I would say Santa Monica colleges.
Absolutely.
So there should be a lot of Santa Monica colleges. Employers must be the colleges to train their employees. All the businesses, you're not in the restaurant business, you're not in the hotel business anymore, you're in education business.
And that applies to government as well. Our Santa Monica Institute is that in-house learning institute.
Yeah.
And folks like our police department do 40 hours of additional training beyond what's required by the state every single year for every single one of our sworn and most of our unsworn staff. It's a tremendous investment of time and energy. But is it worth it, Chief? Okay. Debs, you focused on a pretty wide range of topics here in Santa Monica. And obviously Lyft is interested in how it fits in. You know that we're partnering with you to cut costs and to improve service on our dial-a-ride so that people will be able to get to where they're going faster.
That's right.
They'll be able to book that ride way faster. They'll be able to get there way cheaper, so we'll be able to provide more rides. How does a worldwide company like Lyft fit into a local community?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, because what we're realizing that if we want to realize our mission of improving people's lives with the world's best transportation, it's really important to be a true partner with the communities that we serve. And that means working directly with the cities and the transit agencies that provide a spectrum of transportation options. And we know that transit agencies face real challenges providing high-quality mobility services to everyone. And so by being able to actually sit down at the table with the city of Santa Monica and understand how Big Blue Bus fits into that picture, we're thinking about how we can really transform mobility for a group that needs it most. We're so excited to think about the potential of the dial-a-ride service and what this means for the city's seniors. But it's really being done in partnership and creating this new way of thinking about delivering services where it isn't the private services doing one thing and public transit doing the other. It's really a blending of service and being able to focus on what public transit can do best with big buses and commuter rail, and what services like Lyft can do with smaller vehicles and on-demand technology.
And what advice for our economic sustainability plan do you have? You're based upon your experience with Code for America, your experience now with Lyft, the very dynamic and challenging economy in the Bay Area where issues of equity are front and center as they are here in our community. What are the lessons you would offer Santa Monica so we look ahead to long-term economic sustainability?
Absolutely. And I think that the city is already really starting to think about this, but it's recognizing that to create a 21st century government, it's not just thinking about delivering the services, it's thinking about how we deliver them, why we deliver them, who the user is, and creating a more streamlined way to focus on the user and create a delightful service. And that's one of the things that we actually do really well at Lyft. We are focused on the overall experience and being able to use data to drive the decisions that we make to provide a delightful experience. I see the city of Santa Monica being able to think about that when they think about how they provide services like a business permit or being able to have your child register for school. Being able to create that process.
We're exploring rating what people think about the folks who give them tickets, on a 1 to 5 scale.
You'll have to let me know how that goes. But it's about having that data and being able to create that feedback loop where you understand the user need, you have data to help tell that story, and then be able to design a service that actually meets that need. It's not just specific to transportation, it's for all these services.
Well, actually, we urgently want to make sure actually that no one ever gets a ticket so that people have on their phones and they know when their time is running out and they can, with a couple of taps, be able to re-up or to get back in time to move their car. That's the direction we're trying to drive city services to be more digital. What are the advices? What's the advice you would give Santa Monica for our long-term sustainability plan, Sabrina?
I think one of the most important things to think about is how do we bring in more vibrant businesses to Santa Monica without hurting the infrastructure of the city. I love all the hotels and restaurants here that are just really fantastic, innovative and creative chefs, and the spaces are amazing. But what are the other businesses beyond these businesses that we can bring to Santa Monica, that Santa Monica can actually do better than any other cities?
And in that spirit, I want to turn to your questions, which I have on my lap here. In light of the changes in retailing, Barnes & Noble, a national chain, is closing. We've lost some other local beloved businesses like Busy Bee Hardware. The question that's being asked is by Gans Media, what types of incentives are being offered to traditional brick and mortar retailers to attract new business to Santa Monica? I'm not going to ask you to answer that, although you said we should be doing that. Let me take one of the things we are moving to do is to make getting permits at our city much easier. That is possible to do, and we have a great team on the ground floor of City Hall working to do that. And we're already seeing some results. We're getting great feedback from chamber members who've been through the process. So the old horror stories, we challenge you to come down and see the progress we're making to make it easier. We're working, for example, with Santa Monica Place on bringing in some exciting new businesses front and center there. So one thing is to make the process easier to operate. We have a wonderful shop local business, which is a great partnership with the local businesses and with the Chamber of Commerce and our downtown Santa Monica and the other business improvement districts in town. But it's going to be a real challenge, and I think it has to be more than city government incentives. I think we have to shop at our local businesses, right? It may be convenient to go online at 2 in the morning and order up from Amazon, but if we're going to walk the walk of sustainability for our economy, we have to support the people who support us. Guarantee you Amazon is not sponsoring any Little League teams in our community. Guarantee you that Amazon is not paying its dues to the Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce. Not to say that Santa Monica or that Amazon is something you should never use, but think about all of the local resources. Another question we have here is, how do you keep in contact with the local government? Stallion 319 asks. You heard a little bit of that. You may have missed that in the in our annual report, but we have a weekly SAMO News. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I suppose you could follow us on Bird. I just saw some figures today that we were talking with an Israeli company that monitors social media. A little creepy, except it's all public. And it turns out that 54% of the talking about Santa Monica is generated by some of the information that we're generating through our Office of Communications, compared to only about 46% that's sort of self-generated. He said he's never seen that high a percentage. Usually it's about 75% self-generated. So we're getting important news out. Sabrina, one of the key issues that we heard pretty strong applause on when Mayor Winterer spoke was defending our immigrant community. And as an immigrant, how do we get past the polarizing politics of Washington and genuinely make sure that we are an inclusive and maintain our diversity and inclusive community? What's your perspective?
When people talk about immigration in America, it's such an interesting topic. When you think about any other country in the world, and you look at human capital as a resource, most immigration happens at 33. It's the most average age of immigration. Most monies are spent in economy from 35 to 55. So most countries have paid for that economic machine, and we actually, America, stole that machine to come and spend it in America. So, if you look at it that way in a pure economic sense, and the people who came to this country...
It's a brain gain.
It's no-brainer.
Exactly.
Because mathematically, if you instead of bringing a seed, you bring a harvest orange tree. You're gonna get oranges right now. It's just a no-brainer, instead of harvesting for several years to get to the orange. So pure economic sense, I think it's just really important to understand. And then also the quality of the immigration, we're talking about legal immigration. Most people who came here have somewhat of education or connection to the government, or even ran faster than other people to come to this country. So you're not getting really bottom of the barrel, you're getting top of the crop. So that's one of the reasons why America has done so well, because the immigrants who came to this country are, one, scared not to make it, and two, they came with the work ethic that they're going to do whatever they can to make it. So as a country, I think embracing that immigration is really an important factor. I'm not, again, talking about illegal immigration, because if that's involved with gangs and drugs of illegal immigration, that's very dangerous. So we make our borders very strong so that but encourage legal immigration as much as possible, and just treat the immigrants equally. That's pretty much all immigrants are asking for. They're not asking for any handouts. There's no entitlement. I think most immigrants are just really, really grateful they arrived.
And I'll just push back. I agree. Just push back a little bit about studies have shown that actually immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than native-born Americans. Debs and Sabrina, one topic, one dimension we haven't touched on, and that's the role of women. This is a city that has some extraordinary women leaders, and so I think the challenge for meeting Mayor Winterer's having a Ms. Santa Monica as which one do we pick? Our college president, our city attorney, our chair of the Chamber of Commerce, our mayor pro tem. There's a tremendous number of women leaders in business and civic and education. But this is a moment. This is a moment when women are saying time's up to being discriminated against, to being harassed, to being minimized. What role can women play in being a catalyst in showing the world how to be entrepreneurs, how to be educators, how to be leaders, and how to more than do their share of creating a better future? Debs?
Absolutely. At Lyft, we recognize that the type of community that we want to build and the future of transportation needs to take into account a diverse set of perspectives. And generally, the people that are making decisions about how our city grows and develops is dominated by men. We want to see more female representation in local government, in transit, in city planning, in our business services that are creating new businesses and opportunities, and bringing those perspectives, particularly around safety, which is so important when you think about the built environment and the transportation services we use. We want to have people thinking about how does a family navigate a city? How does someone in a wheelchair or someone with a disability get around? And being able to have a unique set of experiences is going to create richer, thriving, and more vibrant communities.
I want to give credit where credit is due. I now glance down and I see that my question was anticipated by one of our Commission on the Status of Women members who phrased it this way. How can we empower women to actively participate in the discussions about the future of Santa Monica? Sabrina.
As much as I love advocating for social equality and social equity, I do not believe the government should enter into the affirmative action. It's already illegal to discriminate against women. I think women are not weaker species that needs to be protected. Mm-hmm. Women have equal rights in this country. If we think women are treated not equally, what other country would you go? But I think what government and the research institutions can do and must do is why women leadership is important. Mm-hmm. Why it's important, why the diversity can actually make more money. You get much further with sugar than vinegar. And once that study is done, rather than the study of women get paid 70% of what men get paid for the equal job, but do the study of when the femininity of nurturing and mindfulness and the love and communication, all these feminine energy enters into the leadership, how the culture changes and how the corporations do so much better with the prosperity. That is the research and question that we should really think about. And women have a better feminine energy than men. That's the reason why women leadership is important.
Let's close out with kind of a final round here. I'd like to ask each of you, what are you most excited about in terms of opportunities for us to embrace a bright and prosperous future? What are the exciting things that you think we can jump on that our advantages? And then what are our biggest challenges? And finally, how can we overcome some of those challenges and capitalize on some of those advantages? Can we start with you, Debs?
Sure. So when I think about Santa Monica's industries, I think a lot about technology, media, advertising, and I think about the opportunities that those specific industries have with this future of automation. You know, from where I sit at Lyft, where we're really thinking about the future of transportation, we see two big questions with autonomous vehicles. One is, what are people going to do in autonomous vehicles if they're not driving? And two, how might the actual in-car experience change with an autonomous vehicle? And how might that configuration look different? I think that those questions create tremendous opportunity for innovation and entrepreneurship in new ways of streaming information or streaming music or gaming, thinking sort of about in-flight entertainment, but in an autonomous vehicle. And there's so much potential here for the creative entrepreneurs in Santa Monica and people that will be coming here to be part of that, to help tap into the future of that.
And you were very candid about some challenges in your talk. So what are the challenges you think that we ought to be paying attention to?
Absolutely. I think the main challenge here, and this isn't just specific to Santa Monica, this is something that we see much more largely across the country, is the question of if autonomous vehicles get rolled out in a way where people choose to own their own autonomous vehicle rather than subscribe to a network and be part of this, fabric of options where sometimes they're taking Big Blue Bus or riding bike share or taking a Lyft when they need it. We won't be able to see those social, economic, environmental efficiencies because we'll basically just take this environment that we have now that's really focused on car ownership and single occupant vehicle trips, and we'll just be swapping out the car with one that isn't driving. And so the challenge that Santa Monica has is to think about how can we take the planning and the land use and the transit and the policy environment and wrap that up in a way that we're able to actually prevent an alternative reality where we're basically just creating the same thing today. And it's really about creating this menu of choices. And that, I think, is going to be the real challenge.
That's your challenge, Anuj Gupta, our new Director of Policy. Sabrina, what are you most excited about in terms of the opportunities for Santa Monica? And then we'll talk about challenges.
I think the best opportunity that we have here is a community that we created, the tech community, the restaurant community, the beach community that we created because of the vibrance of the city and because of the forward-thinking people and the policymakers in the city. Those people come here. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to recruit, we attract. And that is a great opportunity, especially by being part of that technological advancement of how the 21st century is changing. All these, unicorns that's been born in here, Santa Monica, that is a really great opportunity. Success breeds success. Because of the previous success, more and more people, the dreamers, and the innovators, they all come to Santa Monica. I think that is the human capital pipeline that is endless, is really the greatest asset that we have in Santa Monica, more than the beach.
And Sabrina, you touched eloquently on the social equity and social justice aspect. So do you think that's one of our biggest challenges?
I think social justice and social equity in Santa Monica is more on the education side. We have a very small radius of the land. So how do we give everyone the knowledge and the opportunity of the possibilities that's ahead?
Tremendous. I don't think you would find in very many Southern California communities this level of engagement and discourse. And I'm not just talking about the conversations here on the stage, but the conversations that were taking place as we came in and the conversations that you'll be walking out into. This is an extraordinarily engaged community. 69% of our residents are college graduates. Almost a third have an advanced degree. It's not as affluent a community as people think in the stereotype. 70% of our residents are renters and 13% live below the poverty line. But it's a community that's extraordinarily interested, lively, diverse, and we're having these discussions and these dialogues and these debates. Let's continue them in the year ahead as we get ready for our 250th anniversary as a community. Let's think about the next 50, the next 200, the next 250 years. Thank you both for extraordinary contributions. And thank all of you for coming and for your questions, and I look forward to engaging with you as we wind up here tonight. Thanks for coming.
Let's have another round of applause for our speakers and welcome Nat Travis back to the stage.
Don't leave, folks. Give these folks another round of applause. Have a seat, please. What an inspirational group of innovators we've heard today. And thank you to our mayor, city manager, our panelists. I really enjoyed it. I know many of you want to chat with each other and perhaps the speakers, and we're going to have that opportunity. But before we adjourn, I'd like to, again, recognize our sponsors. If you watch the screen, without their support, we couldn't have done what we did tonight, which I think was incredible. I think you got the seeds for a dialogue that's going to take place between you and people in the audience and otherwise. I'd like to thank the City of Santa Monica again, the wonderful team at the Chamber and our State of the City Event Committee. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining with us.